Hi everybody, it is April and I'm in my craft room and oops, I did it again. Can you tell which block is wrong and which block is right? Join me and I will show you. Yep, it is time for another 3-yard quilt. And this time we're going to use Quick as a Wink and the pattern is Entwined. Let's get the fabric cut. All my fabric is cut. So my first instruction is 1 strip of fabric 1 and 1 of fabric 2. And I am to sew these together long ways. 1 strip of fabric 3 and 1 of fabric 2. So I've sewn my 2 strips together. I'm going to straighten the one end, and I'm going to do that by lining my ruler on the seam. Alright, now I need to cut strips out of both, and the size strip that I'm cutting is the same for both. And here is how you put block A together. You have your strip sets that you cut out, and what you're going to do is put this is unit A and this is unit B. And you're going to sew them just like this. And when you do that, you get this. Now, you need to be careful that you get this and not this. You would think as long as these 2 pieces or 2 fabric 2s are touching each other that it would all be good. No. So make sure that you pay attention to sewing your strips in step 1A. Then we're going to add fabric 3 all the way around the 2 strip sets being sewn together. And what you want to do is not put fabric 3 where there's the short end of fabric 1 exposed. You want to leave that side with no border. So we put fabric 3 here, and then we put fabric 3 here. So it's at the top and at the bottom. And then we put fabric 3 across here, leaving this short end of fabric 1 open. That's how I did it. The directions are a little different, and I don't see any problem with doing it my way. But if you would rather do it the way the directions call, you're going to add fabric 3 to the short end of the fabric. And I chain piece while adding my fabric, and here's how I do that. So this is how I am chain piecing my strips of fabric to my blocks as I build my blocks. Instead of sewing this fabric in the strip without trimming it, and then once I've made it to the end of the block, cutting my thread, trimming the strip off of my block, and then putting the rest of the strip on the next block, I just do them all at the same time. I have a leader cloth so that since I don't have my straight stitch plate in, that will help prevent my needle from pushing the edge of my fabric into the larger hole of the stitch plate that I am using. I also just changed my bobbin thread, and it's to make sure that I was going to get a good stitch. So, got this lined up, and I'm going to start sewing. Then when I get close to the end of my block, I'm going to zoom in here. So if I lift this up, you can see there's my block. What I'm going to do is I'm going to slide this block under, and here we go. Now I'm going to do the same thing again. If you're real particular and your blocks must be perfect, etc., then don't use this method. And what you can do, I'll show you in just a minute. I'm gonna go. So here's what the directions call for. You've got your long strip of fabric. So you take that strip, pretty side down, line your block up. I like to go a little higher up when I'm first starting a strip in case I didn't get the selvage cut completely straight. And then we're going to sew this strip, which is way longer than this block, on this block. Now instead of putting another block under here, what the pattern calls for is for thread to be broken. You're going to take the block that has this big long strip on it, you're going to trim that strip. So here you've got this block, and then I'll cut that excess off. Then take your strip, get your next block, and line it up and sew. The key to successfully chain piecing these blocks is the way you press them open. So what I've found is the strip that's the skinniest, you're going to want to have on the bottom. Then when you flip over your block, this strip, or the skinnier of the two, that's not the one that's being folded. Therefore, it's a much cleaner press, and you can also trim it more easily because you want to trim it open, but you want the trim to be a nice clean trim. Once you have them pressed, then it's easy to use your straight edge and trim them. Once you've added 3 to the short end, then you are going to add a strip adjoining the short end on one side. Again, you're going to leave the short end of fabric 1 exposed. And last but not least, you have the fabric 3 all the way around, leaving this exposed. That is block A. Now we are on to block B. And I've gotten a little more comfortable with the pattern, so I have layered my strips that I've sewn together, and these are sewn together just like the strips for block A, just a different color combination. And I am cutting them out. I am doubling this particular pattern. I am going up to the twin size of this pattern. So here I'm going to cut out all of my strips with only having to make one pass, whereas before it was more time consuming. If you're not comfortable cutting out your strips, and normally it would just be 2 sets at a time if you're making the original size quilt, do 1 at a time. That is not a problem. Block B is the same but different. So block B, you do the same strip sets, just with fabric, just with different widths of fabric, 1 and 2 and 3. This is unit C. So you've got fabric 1, fabric 2. This is unit D, fabric 2, fabric 3. And make sure you sew them like this. So the concept for block B is the same as block A. You're going to leave the short side of fabric 1 open. You're going to put fabric 1 on 3 sides and leave the 1 side exposed. Here I've got my strip set C, my strip set D, and then I've added fabric 1 to 1 side. Same thing, let's look at it the same way. So here I've added fabric 1 to both sides, leaving the short side of fabric 1 exposed from the strip sets. And last but not least, I've got my block, and this side doesn't get a border. Now I will use 4 of these to create block B. So I'll have a block here, a block here, a block here. So I'm going to scoot this up, and a block here. And I will sew all of these together to make block B. My blocks are complete. Here is block A. Can you see it? Yep. And here is block B. I was going to make 1 twin size quilt. I've done 3 April block A's, 3 Donna block A's, and 6 Donna block B's. But I've since decided that I'm going to make 2 quilts, and I'm going to put borders around the edges to make them bigger. 2 is better than 1, right? So let's see what I come up with. My quilt is complete. It feels a little small next to the size quilt I've been making recently, but I think it'll make the perfect lap size. I could add more borders, and I might later, but I've been wearing this green shirt for 4 days now, filming this, and you know, I think I'm ready to get out of the green shirt. Did you guess which block was the wrong one? If you guessed that one, you were right. I explained in the video how important the way you lined up your first 2 strips was. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you taking out the time in your day. I hope this video was helpful. If you are interested in purchasing the book that this quilt pattern was taken out of, I'll put a link in the description below. Her quilts are a lot of fun, and they go together pretty quickly normally, unless you don't follow the directions. Have a great day. Eat some chocolate. Be kind to everybody. Until next time, bye. That's Linda, right? What's her name? Donna. Donna, you will always be Linda to me. Yep. And I don't know what else I have to say.